Good day, everyone. Our topic for today is all about typical and atypical development. Ano nga ba ang typical and atypical development? And domain of development and stages in child development. Si Miss Jocelyn po ay magdi-discuss about sa typical and atypical development.
We hear these phrases thrown around a lot, but what is the difference between typical and atypical kids? Here what you need to know. As children grow, there are different ways that they need to develop. The different childhood development stages help to track a child's progress. The child will need to develop cognitive, language, physical, and social skills. From the moment a baby is born to the time they go off to college, they go through different development stages. The skills usually develop predictably and are known as developmental milestones. However, every child develops at their own pace. It can be difficult to determine differences between typical and atypical children because all kids have their strengths and weaknesses. Typical development refers to the normal progression where children grow by acquiring knowledge, skills, and behavior called developmental milestone and a certain time frame. This implies an ongoing process of growing, changing, and acquiring a range of complex skills. Beginning in earliest infancy, the moves along a developmental. Typical development, for example ng typical ay kapag ang isang 2 years old na bata, inaasahan natin na ito ay marunong na lumakad, marunong na siya magsalita, at nakakilala na siya sa mga tao, marunong siya maglakad ng hindi tinutulungan ng parents. While ang atypical naman, atypical development does not follow the normal course, more so a child developing atypical when he or she reaches a milestone earlier or later than other children his or her age. Developmental disabilities and delays. A child unable to perform like a typical development peers, but the potential for growth is still present. Exist when a children is performing like a child who is typically developing is much younger age. Atypical development, for example nito ay yung pag ang bata ay 2 years old na, tapos pag kailangan pa ng tulong ng magulang kapag naglalakad o naggagapang siya, tapos hindi pa siya marunong magsalita at mailap yung bata.
Thank you, Sophie. Another example po ito para po sa typical development sa 4 years old. First, name some color and add numbers. Sino ba sa inyo ang may kapatid or pinsan na 4 years old? Diba marunong na silang mag-identify ng colors and numbers? Pero, kasi yung pamangkin ko, mas familiar siya sa colors kaysa sa number. Kasi may mga numbers na hindi niya pa alam, may numbers na hindi niya ma-identify kung ano yun. Pero pagtanungin mo siya sa colors, alam na alam niya yan kung anong color na yun. And number 2, understand the idea of counting. Diba alam naman natin most of the 4 years old of children know how to count. Kasi gaya ng pamangkin ko, 4 years old siya. Marunong siya mag-count pero from 1 to 10 pa lang yung alam niya. For the number 3, starts to understand time. Remember parts of a story. Yes, true. Halimbawa, ang isang bata ay lagi siyang nanonood ng cartoons. Sige, try niyong tanungin ang bata kasi alam na alam niya yun kung sino ang mga characters sa story na yun. Number 4, understand the idea of same and different. Yes, may mga 4 years old talaga na alam nila kung itong bagay na 'to ay pareho sa isang bagay or itong bagay na ito ay hindi siya pareha or different siya sa ibang bagay. And number 5, draws a person with 2 to 4 body parts. Ito yung natatawa ko dun sa pamangkin ko. Yes, naalala ko yung 4 years old kong pamangkin. Pinadrawing ko siya, tas yung dinrawing niya ay tao. Akala ko nga, yung poste lang, yun pala ay tao daw. Si papa niya daw yun. Yung ginuhit niya ay si papa niya daw. Ganito yung style, yung alam niyo yung parang stick lang, bilog, dalawang mata, at yung bungangan niya, kung smile ba siya or sad, yung tatlo ang buhok, basta yung parang stick yung kamay niya at saka paa. And number 6, uses scissors. Ayun, sino bang mga ate dyan sa inyo or mga magulang na panay sunod sa mga ginupitan ng kapatid or pinsan or anak niya? Kasi ako, na-experience ko yan kasi panay gupit ang bata at taga-sunod rin ako or taga-linis din ako. Pero okay lang yan kasi unti-unting may nadidevelop sa kanya. Pero make sure na safe siya at nakabantay ka kasi baka pati daliri niya ay magupit. Delikado na yon. And for the number 7, start to copy some capital letters. Yes, alam naman nating lahat na ang 4 years old kapag tinuturuan na siya ng mga magulang niya na magsulat ay ang unang natutunan nila ay ang pinakaunang letra ng kanilang pangalan. And next, 8, plays board or card games. Yes, alam na alam natin lalo na sa panahon ngayon ay marunong nang gumamit ng cellphone ang bata. Gaya nga sa pag-games, alam na nila kung paano pindutin yun. And the last, tells you what he thinks is going to happen next in a book. Next, atypical development, which is ito yung hindi pa kayang ma-meet ng children or hindi pa kayang gawin dahil sa capabilities nila. Or maybe bata pa sila masyado, inborn, or yung thinking capacity nila is limited pa at hindi pa na-develop. So, in atypical development, we have generally loses skills once had. It means that yung na-develop na nilang skills is hindi pa nila gusto or hindi pa sila interested at dahil bata pa sila, hindi nilang kayang gawin yung skills nila na na-develop na. And number 2, doesn't follow 3-part commands. May mga ganyan talaga, may mga 4 years old talaga na di pa nila kayang gawin ang tatlo na yon. And 3, can't retell a favorite story. May mga ganyan talagang 4 years old na mahina pa or hindi pa nadidevelop yung skills nila at hindi pa sila nakaka-memorize or i-retell nila yung story na pinanood nila. And 4, doesn't understand, same and different. Diba, nabanggit ko kanina na limited pa yung thinking capacity nila. So, may mga cases talaga na hindi pa alam ng 4 years old na bata na kung ano ang pareho or kung ano ang hindi magkapareho. And for the number 5, shows no interest in interactive games or makes believe. Yes, ang mga 4 years old talaga na hindi pa marunong gumamit ng cellphone para mag-games or hindi pa sila interesado. And sa 2-month sitting, para mas lalo nating maintindihan ang typical and atypical development, sa 2-month sitting, ang Sa typical ay makikita natin siyang normal ang pag-upo niya. Kumbaga, straight siya. In a good activity of neck extensors, holds and sustains posture with assistance. While a typical development compared to typical development sa picture ay hindi siya straight kasi needs more support to sustain sitting posture. Typical development means development that is unusual in its pattern, is not within normal developmental milestones, and adversely affects the child's overall development. However, there are three commonly accepted principles of a child development that one should look into. The principles are as follows. The number one is rate of development differs among children. It means that development varies because children are all individuals with their own styles, strengths, interests, environments, and patterns of development. Some learn best visually, while others need auditory or tactical approaches. Children may also vary in how each domain develops. Halimbawa, a child who is not very physical might develop much faster and a cognitive or language domain than others. So it is important the teacher must recognize individual patterns and learning moods so they can help children reach their potential in all domains by building on their strength. And second, development occurs in a relatively orderly process. So the sequence in which children learn is more important than exactly motivates milestone. So the critical consideration is their order in which children acquire these developmental skills, not their age, month, and years. Like for example, so babies need to first roll over before they can sit or crawl. And crawling is important developmental skills. And number three, development takes place gradually. Continuous development sees our development as a cumulative process. Example, di ba ang isang bata ay ang unang natutunan nila ay gumapang or roll bago matuto sa pag-upo at matutong paglakad. They are gradually learning how to walk. And our next topic, domain of development. So what is domain? Domain, it refers to specific aspects of growth and changes. Domains for development are cognitive, language, physical, and socio-emotional. Cognitive domain. Construction of thought process which includes a problem solving and decision making. It includes intellectual development and creativity. So please remember these words. So which means kids gain the ability to process thoughts, pay attention level, develop memories, understanding surroundings, express creativity, as well as to make, implement, and accomplish plan. Cognitive involves imagination, thinking, reasoning, problem solving, and memory. So, cognitive domain aims to develop the mental skills and the acquisition of knowledge of the individual. Next is language domain. Refers to the process of acquiring in a consistent order without the need for explicit teaching from the environment. So language domain, it is a dependent on the other developmental domains compared to other domains. It has ability to communicate with others, grows from infancy. But children develop these abilities at different ways. Remember, the one important thing you can do with your child or do to child is throughout their early life is to read them. And not just a bedtime, reading out loud their kids from birth and beyond has a major impact on their emerging language and literary skills. Hearing new vocabulary words is spoken expands a child vocabulary and help them prepare to identify unfamiliar words when used in context. In addition this, you should make sure you are talking to your kids even before they can say their first word. Even singing to your child from birth is an excellent way to build your child's language skills. So language domain, it includes reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Next is physical domain. Covers the development of physical changes, which includes growing in size and strength, as well as the development of gross motor skills and fine motor skills. It means that the physical domains falls into two categories, which are the fine motor skills and the gross motor skills. Remember that fine motor skills, ability to make movements using the small muscles in our hands and wrist, and also fine motor skills help perform tasks for daily living such as dressing, eating, toileting, and washing. Children become independent and learn to dress and undress themselves without assistance. Use utensils for eating and pour liquid without assistance. With time in practice, while gross motor skills involves the larger muscles in the arms and legs. Activities includes walking, running, throwing, and kicking. These skills relates to the body awareness, reaction speed, balance, and strength, and also the development of the senses and their uses are also part of the physical domain, which is influenced by illness and nutrition. So make sure your kids have a healthy diet and regular wellness checkups in order to promote proper child development. For the last domain, socio-emotional domain, it includes the child experience, expression, and management of emotions and the ability to establish positive and rewarding relationship with others. It encompasses both intra and interpersonal. So remember the word intra and interpersonal. So these domains, the child is starting identify what others are feeling develop and ability to cooperate, show empathy, and use moral reasoning. So the child start develop attachment of others and they know how to interact with others. Child develop self-knowledge during the socio-emotional stage. They learn how they identify with different groups and their inmate temperament will emerge in their relationships. So to help child develop both socially and emotionally, look for opportunity for them to interact with kids their age and help them from relationships with both children and adults. So we can also encourage a sense of self. So like ask your child about their interests, passions, and encourage them to identify their strengths and weaknesses. You also should teach them about recognizing and managing feelings. And the next about stages in child development. Stages along with age are used as ranges to mark significant periods in a human development timeline. In each stage, growth and development occur in four stages. First, infancy, early childhood, middle childhood, and adolescence. So, infancy is defined as the first year of life and is the period of most rapid growth. So, as a toddler, humans develop motor skills such as the ability to walk and communication skills. And the next, early childhood is defined as the period from 3 to 8 years old. Early childhood, it is the time of remarkable growth with brain development at its peak. So for the middle childhood is usually defined as ages 9 to 11 years old. It is the time when children develop foundational skills for building healthy social relationships and learn roles that will prepare them for adolescence and adulthood. And the last is adolescence. Is a period of transition between childhood and adulthood. Children who are entering adolescence are going through many changes like physical, intellectual, personality, and social development. It begins puberty ages 12 to 18 years old. Thank you at sana po ay may natutunan kayo.